Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be making a video explaining why I believe that J.D. Vance is the best vice presidential nominee for Donald Trump to pick in the 2024 presidential election, the 2024 general election, because it will eventually go on to be a ticket very, very soon for Donald Trump in that matter, as he will be picking a VP before his convention, which he basically has to do for the VP to be nominated, and the convention is in July, so there's not much time. There's a very closing window for Donald Trump to make his pick. Donald Trump has now stated publicly that he has made his decision and that he will announce his decision very soon, and that his decision will be maybe not announced at this time, but will be present at the presidential debate, unless Donald Trump is trying to, um, you know, put on a show and make it seem as if he's going to pick a certain person, but then actually come out of left field and pick a completely different person. We have a pretty good indication as to the few select fewer people are in contention for the VP position at this point in time. So, in my opinion, there are four top contenders left for Vice President of the United States on Donald Trump's shortlist. So, to begin, it's the person that I believe should be Donald Trump's Vice President, and I will go on to explain why. In addition, it is Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. He's basically on the short list. North Dakota Governor Doug Bergen ran against Donald Trump in the 2024 primary, however, dropped out almost immediately because of the fact that he had practically 0% in the primary polling. And a man who's not on this list, I'm not talking about Senator Tim Scott, Ben Carson, any of these people. I'm talking about Governor Glenn Youngkin of the state of Virginia. I think he's a bit of a wild card in the VP list. And I think that he's in the short list. I think it's between Vance, Rubio, Bergen, and Youngkin. Um, I think that there are many good reasons to pick each and every one of them to be vice president. Obviously, you have to pick one. Let's start off with Doug Bergen, who I believe is, frankly, the worst one to pick out of all of them. He's a very generic Republican and establishment Republican. The main benefit that he would have is the fact that he is as it says here, a successful former tech executive, and he's worth about $100 million. He would do a great job fundraising for Donald Trump's campaign. He bodes well with the establishment. He's basically Mike Pence, except he supports Donald Trump this time around. Frankly, I think he would. And the only real importance of the VP is a slight appeal and doing well at that VP debate. And I think he would do worse than Mike Pence at a VP debate against Kamala Harris. I just don't think he'd be that effective as Trump's vice president. Another reason Trump would want to pick him is simply because he would not outshine Donald Trump in any way whatsoever. Doug Bergen has nothing close to the charisma of Trump, and I think that that's in large part why Trump picked Pence back in 2016, was because of the fact that he knew that Pence would never be able to outshine him in any sense. Um, and when you pick a vice president, you really like to have the people complement each other. And with Trump and Pence, they complemented each other perfectly, at first at least, in the sense that Trump was a very brash and loudmouth um, businessman who said what was on his mind, and Pence was a very reserved, quiet Christian man who appealed to evangelicals in North Carolina and such as. Pence was good in that regard, and then obviously at the end of Trump's term, they ended on bad terms because of the fact that Trump said that Pence could overturn the election results or contest the election results at the certification of the Electoral College. Pence said he could not. Pence certified the Electoral College, and basically Trump uh, does not like Pence for that, and Pence does not like Trump for the fact that he believes that Trump incited the mob to attack Pence at the certification of the Electoral College on January 6th. Anyway, let's get rid of that context. Let's move on to Senator Marco Rubio. Right now, Donald Trump is gaining a lot among Hispanic voters. Senator Rubio would do a tremendous amount in helping to exacerbate this trend and even continue it. And given the fact that a lot of migrants or immigrants, illegal immigrants, you'd like to say, coming from South American countries, right now we see them wavering a little bit. Right now they support Democrats because of the fact that the Democrats support their immigration to the United States and eventual legalization of them, while Republicans oppose it. Seeing a vice president who is Hispanic could help once they are eventually, or if they are eventually become American citizens in that scenario. However, they might not. However, there are still many Hispanic Americans across the country, regardless, help to support Donald Trump or Republicans in the future. I think that if Donald Trump is going to pick a VP, this is basically him picking his successor, who will run as the Republican nominee in 2028. Rubio would do a good job in shoring up a lot of Hispanic vote and certainly guarantee the state of Florida for Donald Trump. He wouldn't have to spend one penny of campaign fundraising money in the state of Florida. That would be a done deal. It almost is a done deal, but with Rubio on the ticket, it essentially would be done. Donald Trump can concentrate his efforts on the Rust Belt, and Rubio can help appeal to a lot of suburban women. He did have that appeal back in 2016 when he ran in the Republican primary, making Donald Trump competitive in states like Virginia, Nebraska, 2nd Congressional District, and some areas in the Rust Belt, a lot of suburb areas, including North Carolina. Moving up to Senator J.D. Vance. Now, let's get it. Actually, before we get into J.D. Vance, let's talk about Glenn Youngkin because I'm going to go and talk about J.D. Vance. Glenn Youngkin. Glenn Youngkin is the governor of Virginia. He won an upset race in 2021 against Terry McAuliffe, the former Democrat governor. Previously, Virginia has been considered a heavily Democrat state, and Glenn Youngkin managed to flip it narrowly. Now he's a very popular governor. He can't run for re-election in Virginia. Their constitution says that you can only have a single consecutive term. You can't have not two consecutive terms as the governor of Virginia. You can have as many terms as you can possibly get. However, they can't be back to back. So, come 2025, his term will end, or 2026 actually, in January of 2026, and you can see that coinciding a little bit with the inauguration in January of 2025. You know, basically, Glenn Youngkin won't have much to do. He could try and run for Virginia Senate. He could try and do some other things, but it seems as if his, you know, political career in the state of Virginia would be coming to an end. And it leaves open the spot for him to concentrate his efforts on something bigger like vice president of the United States. He's also a very wealthy businessman. He could do a tremendous amount in fundraising for Donald Trump. He appeals to moderates, similar to Doug Bergen. And I think that he's sharper than Doug Bergen, more likable, and frankly, on slightly better terms with Donald Trump because of the fact that he didn't challenge him in the Republican primary, opposed to Bergen, who did. Now, I don't know why Bergen came to that decision to challenge him. Maybe he wanted to gain some notoriety, and maybe that's why he is on this short list at the moment. As you can tell, I'm not the biggest fan of Bergen. I don't think he would be the best contender. I've listened to him speak. I just don't think he has that acuity, the mental acuity. He's not smart. He's very smart, but he just politically doesn't have the charisma. Even Glenn Youngkin, a little bit, less charismatic. However, in contrast with Trump, he would do fine, especially in the debates. I think Youngkin would do well against Kamala Harris. Now, let's get into, and he's also, Glenn Youngkin is from Virginia, right now showing tremendous competitiveness in the polls. He could possibly, slightly, very small chance, but possibly sway Virginia in favor of Trump. If Trump ends up winning Virginia, he doesn't need to win a state like, frankly, Michigan or Wisconsin. He could win Virginia, and he could win Arizona and Nevada and Georgia and win the election that way. So many other paths for Donald Trump. Finally, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. He is a very junior senator. He's very young. He would, I think, be the youngest vice president or one of the youngest vice presidents in the history of the United States. If elected, Donald Trump would become the oldest, if he served out his entire term, the oldest man, beating Joe Biden to become president and serve as president of the United States. How you would have that contrast between Trump and Vance, strong contrast. Vance is sharp. Vance would do a tremendous job at the debates. J.D. Vance, while he is the most conservative, he would do the best job at preserving Donald Trump's legacy in what Donald Trump has built in the Republican Party. He's kind of, J.D. Vance is kind now, back in 2016, Vance opposed Trump. He attacked him. He's kind of a result of Donald Trump. There are many Republicans that are popping up across the country that we are noticing that are kind of offspring of Donald Trump, not in the sense that they have his exact personality and charisma, but they are helping to expand his political philosophy. You see that in J.D. Vance. You see that in Vivek Ramaswamy. You see that in Josh Hawley, in Matt Gaetz, for instance. Plenty of people at this point now that are taking root inside of the Republican Party, running for positions in Congress and in the Senate. Blake Masters lost in Arizona, but he's an example. Kerry Lake, who's now running for the Senate in Arizona. Ted Budd in North Carolina. You have plenty of instances of where Donald Trump is picking these people. He endorsed J.D. Vance, if you remember, back in 2022, defeated Matt Dolan and a bunch of other contenders who could have very likely been the next senator from Ohio. J.D. Vance has that Rust Belt appeal. He's very good at talking to people. I just think that he is the smartest out of all the VPs on the short list. Of course, went to Yale, very smart. Now, he wouldn't do the fundraising that Donald Trump does, but he, in my mind, is the clear successor for Donald Trump. And at the end of the day, Trump can pick whatever VP he wants it doesn't matter who he picks as VP. It will have, frankly, almost no effect whether or not he wins the presidency. He should be picking his vice president based off of who he believes would be best to succeed him. And whoever he picks as his vice president will be the clear front runner in 2028 if Trump wins the election. Now, it's a big if. If Trump loses the election, it could go a very different way. You could see Nikki Haley as the nominee in 2028 or somebody completely different. However, if Trump wins, that's who it'll be, very likely. So that's what Trump should be focusing on in my mind. And of course, he should look at the benefits, look at somebody who's smart, who could beat Harris in a debate. That's exactly what J.D. Vance is. J.D. Vance advances the conservative agenda, and J.D. Vance is Catholic. And Donald Trump, in my mind, it would be a very good idea for him to have a Catholic vice president because it would help appeal to a lot of the Catholic communities across the country who have felt disenfranchised, especially by the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. Even with Joe Biden identifying as a Catholic, many Catholics don't identify with him. So he could help secure a lot of that vote. Anyway, with that being said, that is why I believe J.D. Vance should be the Republican vice presidential nominee in 2024. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let me know your comments and the thoughts below as to whether or not who you think should be Trump's vice president in 2024. Anyway, thank you for watching. Have a good day, and make sure to subscribe.